it's Chrissy again, and today I have for you a very short review of Where I Belong by Mary Downing Hahn. I love Mary Downing Hahn. She is the first author whose name I learned. She was the first author that just made me really want to read, and I have a large collection of her books. These are all the books by Mary Downing Hahn that I own. These are not all the books by Mary Downing Hahn I have read, though there are, I think, 2 in here that I haven't read of hers. However, you can tell. I don't know how well you can tell on the camera, but these books, these 4, Stepping on the Cracks, Following My Own Footsteps, As Ever Gordy, and The Wind Blows Backwards, are very, very well-read, well-loved books. This is my favorite book. It's contemporary, and I call it my favorite book. Now, it's been a while since I read it, and I'm not gonna lie, the relationship is not the healthiest, and it's not happy, but I love it. I've read this book 3 times. I don't reread books, and I don't love contemporary, and yet this is a contemporary that I've read 3 times and call one of my favorites. Pick it up. These 3 are companion novels. The first one, Stepping on the Cracks by Mary Downing Hahn, is my favorite children's book. I haven't read it in quite a few years, but I've read it several times. I have read these 2 several times. And pick them up. Pick them up. Just pick them up. They're children's historical fiction. World War II, the very beginning of this book opens up with the whole step on a crack, break Hitler's back, and they're trying to step on the cracks. Just really, really good books. Go get them. Go get them now. I totally support Mary Downing Hahn. Go do it. Now what this video is actually about, Where I Belong by Mary Downing Hahn. This is her latest book. And if I'm being completely honest, it is not my favorite book by her. You've heard me rant about my favorite books by her. So I can't say this is my favorite book by her, and it is middle grade, but it was also really, really good. The first 50 pages were a little slow. I kind of felt like she came up with the story starting on page like 50-something, and then was like, well, I gotta kind of build up to that. So the first like 50 pages are a lot of getting you to the story, but not being part of the story. So I didn't care for the first like 50 pages, but then when other characters started getting introduced, I really fell in love with it, and just like I always do. There's another book by Mary Downing Hahn that's a young adult book called December Stillness. This one kind of reminded me of a middle grade version of December Stillness. This book is about a boy who has kind of a miserable life. He really does. Or he feels he does, and it isn't great. He's in the foster care system, and he doesn't get along with his foster mother, and he's picked on at school, and he is kind of weird. He is a bit of a weird kid, but still, he's getting picked on in school. He's being taunted by these really, really bad people, and I'm not talking about bullies. I'm talking about street gang type bad people. And he ends up having to go to summer school, but the boy isn't stupid by any means. In fact, he has this obsession with the Green Man, which is something he learned in school, and it's the mythical man who protects the forest, and he ends up going out into the forest, and he finds this big tree, and he builds a tree house, and he meets people, and he makes good friends, and then something really bad happens to him, and he kind of realizes that the mythical, magical Green Man isn't who he needs, isn't where he should be. It's people, real people that really are there for him that he should be with, and he develops a more positive attitude, which is something he needed, and he kind of realizes that you can both believe in magic and see magic in the forest and that kind of thing, his weirdness, but still live in the world and life. And I'm using the quotes because he capitalizes life as something he doesn't necessarily want to be a part of, the grown-up world that he doesn't want to be a part of. It's a good book. It really is. It is a solid 4-star book, and if you are interested in middle grade, I would recommend this book and any other book by Mary Downing Hahn. Particularly, my favorites, obviously, are Stepping on the Cracks and its companion novels, but I also really like Old Willis Place. The Old Willis Place is a really, really good one. She writes a lot of ghost stories, and that was one of my favorites by her. And since this video is becoming more of a pitch towards Mary Downing Hahn than just a review of her latest book, I will say, if you're not into middle grade, she does write young adult books. This is not her only one. This is just the only one I own of hers. It's also not the only one I've read of hers. So I know they're good. Like I said, December Stillness is another young adult book by her, which is really good. Yeah. Also, particularly if you are middle grade age and you're finding yourself in a situation where you're reading tons of middle grade books and they're all fluffy, happy contemporary or silly paranormal, I had a problem with that when I was younger because I didn't like that. I liked more serious books. Mary Downing Hahn does a really good job of taking a serious topic and putting it into the lives of middle grade aged kids and just dealing with it in an appropriate yet age appropriate way. It's really, really good. And Where I Belong kind of does that too. A lot of people on Goodreads comment about how it's kind of a depressing book, and it has its depressing moments. It does. That's what Mary Downing Hahn does and what she does so well. She took a real topic, a serious topic, one that is kind of depressing, and explains it to middle grade. And she does it so, so well. I've said that several times now, but I would read her books. I really would. And her books, at least her middle grade books, don't usually end on a low point. They do have happier moments, and they usually end with some sort of happy or positive revelation. So it's not going to be like, oh my god, you just depressed me to no end. I recommend them. I recommend them to all ages. I recommend them to middle grade, and I recommend if you have a middle grader that's not falling in love with the fluffy contemporaries and silly paranormals. It's a good book. She's a great author, and this is her latest book. So I'm going to go now before I talk another 30 minutes about Mary Downing Hahn. But Mary Downing Hahn. Bye.